Mere conservatism.
It's bad. I mean, the left has gone pretty much all the way.
Yeah.
They have a president now who's carrying out their wishes with really no view on the future. Joe Biden is a one-term president, if that.
Yeah. It won't be a full term.
If he even makes it a full term. And so he's pushing through everything he can do. It's not like Barack Obama, who was far left but understood politically what he could do and spent his political capital very strategically. It's not like that. Joe Biden is all out, and it's really bad, things that they're doing.
It's Obama, though, really doing what he wanted to do. It's finishing up what Obama started. He even said that.
Yeah.
That's what Biden's term is.
And let me say this, and that's true, the third term of Obama, and really stepping on the gas. And not only that, but the bureaucracy is also really taken hold of everything. But the state, quote unquote, the bureaucracy is full speed ahead in taking over the things that they want to take over and run. And it is healthcare decisions.
Yeah.
It's communication.
Yep.
It is the way we think about and
as a matter of fact,
politically.
One of the things we're going to talk about is what will be, if he can get it done, and I think he will, unfortunately, what will be the new Social Security. The big sacred cow that he's creating that will give the Democrats their biggest entitlement thing yet as far as locking in folks. And we're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, let's talk about some good news, because last broadcast we were talking about some outrageous stuff, and we're going to be talking about it this broadcast as well. But let's talk about something inspirational. And what's inspirational is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. The more I see of this guy, the more I hear this guy. Well, anyway, he gave a wide-ranging speech this past Wednesday at the Alliance Defending Freedom Summit on Religious Liberty, in which he emphasized to the conservatives there the need to combat smear campaigns. And DeSantis also touted his stance against the lockdowns during the pandemic. He spoke about the shocking power grab by governors during the pandemic.
But no one would have thought at that time that if there was a pandemic, that governors would be able to seize power to lock kids out of school for a year and a half, to forbid people from being able to earn a living, from putting a lot of people into destitution. No one would have thought that that was possible. And so the question is that something that we should allow to be repeated again? And I say we can never let this happen to our country again.
I need to hear our governors say what just we just said. Never again. It's kind of important, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good because DeSantis, he took a little bit of a hands-off approach when it came to top-down control in the state. Local municipalities were allowed to do things. Mm-hmm. I will say that was a difference between Florida and Georgia that I think Georgia did better, which is that Georgia said, no, you can't have any restrictions that are heavier than what we're doing at the sate level.
You battled Atlanta over that.
And I think that was a good thing. Now, however, his point is good. We had government seize the opportunity to flex their muscles. Luckily, we had a president who wouldn't do that. And we had a few governors who were reluctant to do that.
We're still doing it.
And didn't do that. But other governors, like you said, are still locking down and being very strict. They're bowing down to the unions and things like that. The teachers' union stuff is still going on to some extent. It's a real problem. We've seen the way that they have taken control and the way they seized an opportunity. Cleve, I really think that they just wanted to do this and they saw a window. It's not that they necessarily thought it was the best thing to do with COVID, because I think that what Ron DeSantis did was obviously the best thing you could do with COVID.
Although the media didn't think so.
They didn't think so
story.
Because he wasn't strict enough. But he saw what the threat was. He saw what the risks were, and he acted accordingly. Other places, they just clamped down. As if that's what they wanted to do all along, and it fit right in.
Well, you say other places. I want to be more specific. It was other democratically controlled states.
California, Michigan,
New York.
Yeah, places like
seriously,
this, for the most part.
That's the point I want to make. It's the Democratic governors who saw themselves as little dictators and took advantage of the situation.
And it fit right in. It fit seamlessly with the desire of the left to be nanny state.
Yep.
Because when they took that, when they shut things down and they clamped down, it was then up to the government to make people whole. And you and I even discussed that. Look, you're right. We don't know. 15 days to slow the spread. We got to shut it down, and the government should compensate people for running a truck through their living room. Right. Is basically what they've done.
Well, it's in the business's fault.
Yes, and so they should be compensated for that. But it went well beyond that, Cleve.
Which we should have known it would.
Of course it would.
Okay.
Yeah, and so a lot of these left-wing politicians, they saw the opportunity to advance what they want to do all along, which is the nanny state, for the government to baby you.
That's what they needed. Now
they're still doing it.
Here's Ron DeSantis still continuing with the idea that, following the science, what has been an excuse by many of these governors we're talking about to do what they're doing. Here's his opinion of that and how he handled it in Florida.
So when people say, what did you do in Florida? I answer very shortly and clearly, Florida chose freedom over Fauciism. I love it. I wasn't about to let the state get Fauci'd, where you have kids that don't have access to education, where you have people that get plunged into destitution, where you see mental illness and substance abuse and other health problems exacerbated by these disastrous policies. And we had to buck the media, the bureaucracy, quote unquote experts. These experts have been wrong about almost everything.
See, Trump can't.
He's right.
Trump can't talk like that.
Well, and DeSantis is good at this kind of thing because he's very smart and he knows the data.
Yeah.
That's why he did such a good job in Florida. He's not like Trump, where Trump just kind of says whatever comes to his mind, which is fine sometimes, and other times it's really scary and weird. DeSantis might say what comes to his mind, but he knows more. I'm sorry to say it, but he knows more about this stuff. And so it comes across a lot better and a lot more authoritative.
But the thing DeSantis does, which is why I'm hoping he is the nominee next time round, is what Trump did do. And that is, he did not come across as somebody who's going to be cowed by the media or his opponent in the Democrat Party. And you have to do that, David. Yep. We have to have leaders that give our people something to rally around. And Trump did do that for all of the other things he might not have done well. And DeSantis is the only one so far, there are others, to me, who has that rallying aspect to his work.
Yeah, think about Republican leaders of the past, whether it's Mitt Romney or whether it's John McCain or even George W. Bush.
Or even McConnell.
Where they tried, and McConnell's not as bad about this anymore, but where they tried to play nice with the media.
Yeah.
They're polite.
Yeah.
They're calm.
I think they were scared.
They might be scared, but the last thing they wanted to do is come across as aggressive and mean. I think that's mostly what it is their persona, where they wanted to be seen as very stately.
I tend to think they wanted to be seen as what the progressives are, very motherly. It's almost matronly. In other words, they will take care of you.
That's a great description. And so Trump wasn't like that. I don't know if you noticed. He was a little bit different.
And it was welcome, though.
Yes.
I mean, that was whatever else Trump did, that was what gave the rallying cry to the folks who supported him, because we didn't have that before.
And what bugged me and what bugged so many people on the right is that we could look at the media and say, President George, listen, they hate you. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you say. They hate you.
Right.
So why are you trying to act like there's anything you can do that will make them not hate you? There isn't.
No, it's not.
Trump knew that. And so he didn't try to play their game, which was good. Ron DeSantis does the same thing, to your point.
Well, George chose silence and statesmanship, which looked good.
Yeah, which is fine and honorable and all that stuff. But there has to come a point
where you have to do what Trump did, simply give them as good as you get. And that's what he did, basically. And that term fake news that he hung on them is still being used today.
Yeah, especially in our society now, where we are in a cold civil war. in our country.
You really believe this?
Oh yeah. This has been going on for quite a while. And I think I said, I'm sure it's been several years on this program where I said, we are here. This is a cold civil war in our country.
Yeah.
And we're not picking up arms or anything like that, but there is definitely a civil war going on in our country.
Oh, what about the insurrection on January 6th?
Well, that's part. Well, yeah, no arms in that, but that is part of it. I mean, that happened. It's part of the whole story. There is something going on, and maybe that wasn't happening as much under George Bush, but now it is. And you can't just play nice. You're going to get beat.
Well, here's the thing, to show you that what you're saying is true. Finally, and DeSantis is not the only one. Thank goodness there are other governors of other Republican governors of other states who are recognizing we have to take action on behalf of our own states and against what the federal government is planning. Like there are several states now planning on sending National Guard people basically there's the border and they're offering help in other ways because we're under attack. The Americans, particularly conservative Americans, are under attack by our own government and by the progressive states led by Democrats. It's an attack. And until we realize that, I don't think we realize what you're saying is true, that there is a cold civil war going on. It's not a nice thing. And the other side has already started with the violence. Forget about January 6th. We've already seen burning and looting and people being attacked and other stuff. On our side, the violence has already started against us.
That's true.
And I don't think people want to face that, David. I think we got a friend, and we won't name him, of course, he might not be listening to the broadcast anyway, who just thinks this is the same old between political parties who are just trying to pivot and maneuver for the best. No. The Democrats are Marxist, and Marxism does not allow for an opposition voice.
And one thing that leftists say a lot, which is actually true right now, which is that we're in a battle over the soul of our nation.
That is true. I mean,
they love to say that.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Right now it's true.
If we go
used
their
to be
route,
hyperbole, but now it's not anymore.
If we go their route, we lose our soul.
Cleve, we literally have people that want to push forward the idea that America has never been good, that it's not a good country, that it's founded on just the sickest, worst racism and stuff you can imagine. That is the founding ideal of our country, and the founding reason for our country is slavery and enslaving black and brown people, POCs, people of color. It's a lie.
Of course it is.
The American flag is now literally a hate symbol to these people. I am not being. This is real. They actually believe that.
You're making a great point, and that's the whole essence of the critical race theory. It's why we cannot, when I say we, Americans cannot let that be foisted upon us. It's why the church, I keep saying, also needs to speak out against it because it's also anti-Christian faith. See, the critical race theory, and you were the first person I really remember bringing the alarm about that critical race theory, and now I see why. It literally is the means through which they're going to justify reparations and a whole bunch of other stuff that are going to get us further and further in debt and further out of the mainstream of what America really needs to be. And that's sad. It really is. Well,
by the way, I wanted to say one other thing about Ron DeSantis saying that these places got Fauci'd. Trust the science, they say. The science, quote unquote. Fauci is the representation of the scientific bureaucrat, okay? He is a scientist in name only. What he really is a politician. And the left is using science as a trump card and as a bludgeon. They're using the word science and the idea of it as a bludgeon to control people. It's not science. It's not scientific. The stuff that they do really is public policy is what it is. It is politics. So everything that Dr. Fauci says is actually politics. And they can try to hide behind science all they want, but that's not what it is. And so what you're seeing is leftist politics, and they are doing what they do all the time. They took a word that people respect and have a certain connotation with, and they have hijacked it to mean something, and it could mean anything, just to shut people up.
Well, he even looks and sounds the part. I mean, to look at him before you hear him get crazy, he looks like what a scientist is imagined to look like, and sounds to a certain extent like that. So he carries a little gravitas.
I mean, he definitely looks like he's had a few wedgies in his life.
So my point is, you're exactly right. And all along, we need to understand that science is easily corrupted by money. And most of the scientists today have foundations or are funded by sources that definitely have an impact on what they say and what their research determines. And we need to
if you
that.
don't think that scientists can be swayed and by money, that it can't be contaminated by the influence of politics and money, then you're so naive. Then there's not really a reason to have a conversation like this with you. You've got to realize that people are people, and scientists aren't some magical people that are completely dissuaded by money and power and politics.
You got it. Yeah,
they're influenced just like everybody else is.
The scientist said something else I don't have the audio for, but he said what you're saying right now. Basically, he said, I am the governor. I am the administrator of my state. What I did was take the best science that I heard at the time, and I took it into account in my decisions, but I couldn't let that dictate public policy. He said the science could not do that, and I think that's what the other people ostensibly did.
Well, that's exactly right, and we should make a distinction between what the science says, quote unquote, and the decisions that we make politically.
Yeah.
The scientific discoveries and scientific realities, if you want to call them that, about the virus or about whatever, are one factor when it comes to me living my life.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not the only thing that I consider. When I consider the decisions that I make, I consider moral realities, scientific realities, practical things about my day-to-day life. These are all things that a politician, in other words, Ron DeSantis, has to take all that stuff into consideration and make a decision.
Exactly.
And
how will this impact?
And you, as an individual, needs to take all that stuff into consideration and make a decision. Science is not. Biden wants you to think that science is the thing that makes all your decisions for you, because they don't want you to make any decisions. They want your decisions made for you, and they're using science as a guise to control you, because they say science says you need to do this, so this is what you're doing. That's their way of taking all personal responsibility, personal decision-making, freedom away from you.
And you cannot question it either. All right, you're getting some money, David. I don't know if you're excited about it, but you and many parents will notice that your bank accounts will have a little bit more money in it. It's already started, in large part because of an expanded child tax credit that is part of the so-called American Rescue Plan. Biden increased the size of the tax credit as part of his $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package. And now here's what happens. The credit is now $3,600 annually for kids under 6 and $3,000 for children ages 6 to 17. But 6 months of payments are going to be advanced on a monthly basis through the end of the year. This means that eligible families will receive $300 monthly for each child under 6 and $250 per month per child older than that. And the benefit is set to expire after a year, but Biden is already pushing for it to be extended through 2025 and ultimately made permanent. He says this is as important as Social Security. What do you say?
New entitlement, new benefit.
Brand new.
So
huge.
So here's the thing. In some ways, I don't mind the concept of this because for two reasons. One, if you're going to get money back on your taxes, if you're going to get a refund, I don't mind getting that throughout the year. However, a lot of people who are getting this don't pay taxes. This is just a handout, a credit for having children.
Don't say handout. That'll trigger some folks.
Well, it totally is, but that's fine. Guess what? A lot of countries incentivize people having children by doing this. So it's actually not unusual in a lot of countries, especially in Europe, where they say, by the way, we have a problem in our country. If you're Germany, for instance, you say to yourself, we've got a little bit of problem in our country where people aren't having enough kids. And so we will incentivize you to have kids by giving you tax credits to have for these children. So I don't think it's the best idea. I don't think it's not totally unheard of. It's not crazy.
Here's why it's horrible, though. It's horrible for, number one, it's something that the Democrats, once they get it in place, to vote against them is to lose that money.
Right.
It's a huge hammer that they can put against Republicans.
And here's the other big problem with it. You might have noticed we don't have any money.
No, I've noticed it. I don't think a lot of folks have.
The debt is huge.
Yeah.
The deficit is huge.
Yeah.
This is, we don't just, well, they do. I was going to say we don't just create money out of nowhere, but actually the government does. But eventually this stuff is going to have to be paid for. We have inflation going on right now.
Hyperinflation.
It's a real problem. So because of all that, it's a real problem when you start doing this. The only way to mitigate it is to really start increasing taxes or to inflate the currency so that your dollar is worth less.
So you took the words out of my mouth, because you were talking about how that just made sense on some level. But I was going to say, eventually what is going to come from this, even though they promised not to, as far as the lower middle class is concerned, everybody's taxes is going to get a big hit. It's inevitable when you do a big boondoggle like this. And though once it comes in place, and they left it open-ended possibly in the future, but there's a stop for it now. They're literally saying to all these people, to all these families now, many who will be getting, maybe an extra $1,000, okay? They're saying you lose all this if you vote Republican. It's just a big vote buying scheme, and it is like Social Security. I think it cannot be gotten rid of, because it is money that is now definitely owed to the recipient. So it's going to be there in perpetuity, but it has given more power to the government to say, we can determine your well-being in every aspect, and now we're going to pay for your kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, and let me be, in the interest of being balanced,
okay,
let me just point out that there is already a child tax credit.
Right.
This is the child tax credit itself is not a new thing.
Right.
It's been going on for a couple of decades, I believe.
Well,
the reason I say that is because, just to be balanced, the child tax credit itself is not a new thing. What's new is that it's higher now, and that it comes to you monthly for the rest of this year. So, look,
it's not paid for like everything else. They keep. It's not. It's not sustainable. It's created something out of thin air, and I'll tell you what it does. And this is going to sound awful, but as a black man, I've seen this happen in my own community with the welfare payments to unwed mothers. It increases that situation where women continue to have, especially young women, kids out of wedlock, because it is financially beneficial for them to do so. Mm-hmm. So to me, you're going right back into that playbook. And a lot of families, a lot of situations are going to be made worse because of this particular incentive just to have kids, not to have a sound marriage or a financial family footing, but just to have kids.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
Can't argue with you.
Again, as a black man, I've seen it happen, David. Every time the government does something and it seems to be benevolent, the upshot is it increases activities and ways of doing things in the communities of color that are harmful to them. And I can remember when I was younger and I started noticing that these young women, I'm talking about young ladies in their 20s, early 20s, with 6 or 7 kids, not married, okay, but the welfare benefits were contingent upon them not being married. And so therefore, if you want more money without getting a job, that's what you do. And so, again, I like the idea of child tax credits, because I think that anything you do to encourage the nuclear family is a good thing. Anything that can benefit the nuclear family, okay. But we're talking about creating incentives not to have a nuclear family, a mom and a dad in a home providing for their kids. We're creating incentives for that to fall, which, by the way, BLM is all for. I mean, this is what they want.
BLM. They're terrible.
Did you hear what they said about Cuba?
I was about to ask you the same thing. Yes, I did.
Did you not get enraged?
BLM loves communists. Look,
at least they're being honest.
We said for years it's a Marxist organization.
Yeah.
A lot of people scoffed at that. Well, Told you.
Well, it took Biden forever to say anything about communism. He actually said communism is not a good idea. It's a failed.
He finally said that?
Yes, he finally said that. He was forced to, although he doesn't mean it, of course, like nothing else he says. But my point is, we are seeing, and this is what kills me, when they show the footage of the Cubans crying out for freedom, many carrying American flags.
Yeah, that symbol of hate, by the way,
right.
The American flag.
Over here. And over here, we have many trying to give up our freedoms, trying to literally usher in the very system that we're seeing fall apart over there.
Let me propose a 1-for-1 trade.
Okay.
Okay. We trade our America haters for the America loving Cubans. And we'll just trade them out. I'm serious. Look, you guys, you hate America. You love socialism. They have a great healthcare system down there, I hear. So why don't we just trade out these folks? I think that would be a really great idea.
One quick thing to show you why that wouldn't work. The Biden administration has already made it clear they don't want any boat ramps or fleet of boat ramps from folks trying to leave Cuba now because, number one, it's too dangerous. So and you know the reason why they don't want them? The Cubans are the Hispanics who don't want what the federal government is doing over here. They don't want that Hispanic. They want the Hispanics who come over here totally ready to depend upon the largesse of this nation. That's
right. It's really sick to see the way the left treats Cuba. It's really sick. It's bad. And what can you say other than they like Marxism?
Simple as that.
It's romantic. It's a romantic idea to them. And they've missed the point of what's going on down there.
And they always will miss the point.
And they always will miss the point. Yeah. And a lot of people are blaming America for the communist government failing in Cuba and failing its people and the people being dissatisfied. Yeah. But it is interesting to see how strongly the Biden administration came out against Cubans coming from Cuba and doing everything they can to get to Key West.
Anybody else from any other part of the world, you're welcome.
Then you're right. It is because of the people in Cuba. They hate Marxism.
So they won't
and the left can't have that. They don't want that.
They won't vote Democrat. That's why they don't want it.
More than likely, they won't.
Well, we come to the end of the program here, David, and folks can hear it again at any time they want to.
Yeah, they can check it out on the Apple Podcast app. You can also find us on Facebook. We post the podcast every week on Facebook. It's in video form, and also on YouTube.
And keep up with what we're talking about. And also, we'd like your input and opinion. You can go on the Facebook page for Mere Conservatism and comment there. We'd love to hear from you. David Perry and I'm Cleve Walker saying, hey, keep the faith. It's not over with yet. Bye-bye.